First story. Dealing with a locker thief in high school. This was back in the early 2000s, probably 2003 to 2004 school year. Throughout the entire year, there was a crime wave of people having things stolen out of their locked lockers. Not everyone, but enough that everyone knew someone it happened to. The school's only defense about this was that it was our fault for sharing locker combos with our friends. They also charged us every time we had to get the combination changed on a locker, like after a theft for instance, because it was assumed to be our fault. Well, I had my graphing calculator taken out of my locker. I also never gave out my combination to anyone. Mostly because my friends were jerks and we pulled pranks on each other all the time. So I was out $150 for the calculator and another $150 to change the combination, getting a locksmith to change out the lock. This is 2003 money, so it's a bit more than now. To anyone who has ever had to buy a TI-86 in 2003 or 4, you'll know how much the things cost. While my dad was drinking buddies with one of the county detectives, I'll call him Detective Buddy or Uncle Buddy. He went in to talk to the school about these string of thefts going on so he could get the security camera for the day my calculator went missing, and he got completely brushed off as it was a non-existent problem and he must have given out his locker combination. The principal told him he would need a warrant to get the camera footage. Then, when he got the warrant, the school filed the warrant in court citing student privacy. Cue the pro-revenge. Detective Buddy shows that our house was a laptop in a laptop bag. He's like, throw this in your locker and tell everyone you know about your brand new laptop. Okay, sure, Uncle Buddy. 3 days later, I show up at my locker between classes and the laptop is gone. The bag too is nowhere to be seen, as is a 24-ounce bottle of Coke and possibly some pens. I take my phone out and text him that the laptop got taken. Stand by for the crabby show. Oh, and you reported the theft to the police, FYI. He replies back. Okay, I replied. Confused. I got about the rest of my day and I don't hear anything back. The following morning, Detective Buddy comes to the school with 3 uniformed officers and pulls a student, Dave, out of class as well as his mom, who works in the front office. The principal is angry. I don't actually hear the cops, but the principal is angry to no end that he had the audacity to accuse them of theft and he couldn't just take them out of his school, etc, etc. Well, turns out there was a tracker in a laptop bag and Uncle Buddy got a warrant to search a particular house. The laptop had a value of over $1,000, making it a felony. And the next afternoon, he set up a tent with a table just outside the school grounds. He also had a banner across the top. If you have had something stolen from your lockers, see me. By the next morning, Dave and his mom made the paper. Apparently, Dave allegedly used his mom login information to get into the school network and get the locker combinations for basically everyone. Then he just opened random lockers looking for valuables to steal if he didn't get information of a specific locker to steal from. When he set up the stand to get more people reporting thefts, he racked up an astounding number of charges. Each locker counted as a separate misdemeanor unless the stolen object was worth more than $1,000, in which case it was a felony. In less than a week, Uncle Buddy opened and broke an investigation. They charged Dave and his mom with 9 felonies and 35 misdemeanor charges. When I finally got the story from Buddy, he explained what the situation was. He had me stash a brand new laptop that had a GPS tracking unit stuck in it in my locker, then get it stolen deliberately, and then he got a warrant to search the property it had been taken to. Now the fun thing to stress is that the laptop was over $1,000, pushing the theft from a misdemeanor into a felony level. There was also another 8 felony charges, Stuff like jewelry that was stolen from other people's locker and recovered. So any of the locker break-ins that amounted to over $1,000 stolen was a felony charge, and less than $1,000 was a misdemeanor charge. Cool thing was that because the calculator and the laptop were separate days, and the combination changed between the days, he got a felony and a misdemeanor charge off me alone. The 9 felony thefts ended up in the $12,000 range total, and the 35 misdemeanor charges were somewhere in the range of $3,000 total in value. Now that's an awful lot of stuff stolen, but I need to stress that this is only what was proven stolen. Like this is what they caught him was in his possession that they could trace back to someone. They also did not let them plead to anything. It was Bottingsville's highest profile crime in years and without a doubt one of the worst crime sprees a county had seen in decades. Next up, on the revenge, everyone who had been charged $150 to get their locker combinations changed sued the school district in a class action lawsuit. The justification was that the school did nothing to investigate the 44 proven and more than likely 200 plus cases of locker theft and then charged money to get the locker combinations changed. There were 218 people in the class, and in total everyone got $85 after attorney's fees. The principal also lost his job for being a bonehead and not bothering to attempt to deal with the massive problem that was reported to him going on at the school. A fun thing I need to point out is that the school brought in a locksmith to change out the locks. That's why they justified charging $150. Well, the school already paid the $150 a locker, but they also had to return $100 per locker, meaning that they were out $21,800, plus their legal fees for that class action suit. Next comes the criminal trial and the fallout. The prosecutor's deal was 10 years in prison, 5 in juvenile and 5 in adult prison for Dave and 15 for Dave's mom. Well, they refused that deal and it went to trial. Dave got 1 year prison for each felony, the state minimum, and 1 month's probation for each misdemeanor. So 9 years plus 35 months of probation. As for his mom, she received 18 years of jail and 6 years probation. Having attended much of the best parts of the trial, I will say this. They had Dave on camera entering 20 plus lockers, and they had them in possession of stolen goods for every single charge they made against him. The judge was also not amused that there were likely other reported crimes that they got away with, because they couldn't prove it or they weren't reported. Dave's mom got it worse. That was a fun sentencing to show up for. But the most important thing is that I got my graphing calculator back. It had my name engraved inside the battery compartment. I still have it as well as a cool story to tell. Next story. Refuse to pay the $600 you owe me? Guess what? Now you owe double. Alright guys, buckle up. This is a story 2.5 years in the making. As I transitioned out of the US Navy about 3 years ago, I decided to sell my beloved Saturn Vue and bought a much newer RAV4. When I returned home, I now had my shiny new car and wanted to sell my old one to someone who I thought would take care of it. I'm savvy like that. My cousin was dating a guy who we will call ex-douchebag. I had met him before and he seemed chill, so I verbally agreed to sell him the car for $2,000, half upfront, payments when he could do so. An important factoid for later is that when you transfer the title, you tell the state what you're selling for and get taxed on that. We were discussing telling the state that I was selling to him for less to lessen the tax. I don't remember why, but at the last minute I decided to tell the notary the full price I was selling for. Good thing I did. Good thing I did. After a few months of sporadic payments and a really nasty breakup between my cousin and the entitled douchebag, turns out he was a serious douchebag. Surprise, surprise, the payment stopped. Now I was hopping between my dad's house near cousin and my mom's 8 hours away. And college in between and takes around 10 months out of the year. He had missed months before, so I wasn't too concerned. But after 3 months, I messaged him about the payments. And the conversation went basically as follows. Hey man, sorry to hear about the breakup. How did you want to give the money to me now that cousin isn't acting as a go-between? I paid the money. If she decided to take it for herself, that is not my problem. The car is legally titled in my name, so it's your problem now. Delete my number. Have a nice day. Okay? I was very dubious. Hi, aunt and cousin. Did the entitled douchebag give you the remaining $600? No, he didn't. Hey man, it's me again. They said they didn't receive it. How did you send it? I can track it down. I gave her $600. It is not my problem anymore. Do not text me again. Well, alright then. Since he can get me for harassment for continuing to contact him, I decide for a little malicious compliance. I take all the texts, get my aunt and cousin to agree to testify if needed, put together a list of his payments and dates, and the car title receipt, which says how much it was sold for. And I took his butt to the local district court. Now, as I said, I was bouncing around a lot, which is why this took so long to be honest. But it took about a year for this step, in which a lot of research was done, and apparently, a year was a lowball estimate on the statute of limitations anyway. The biggest pain in the rear was making sure his address was up to date. He used his grandmother's as a mailing address, and after he was served, he moved again. Likely trying to get rid of me. I know when he was served because I received a message from him on the day he was. And this conversation was as follows. Excuse me, but I thought we settled this a year ago. Well, sorry, but there are still $600 missing and you told me not to contact you, so… I already told you I paid. I have to deal with $8K from my DUI and $7K from my motorcycle accident. I can't deal with this petty stuff. If you take me to court, I'll counter-sue you for stress and garnish your wages for missing work. At this point, he's trying to get me to tell him what I have on him that can prove he's in trouble. I tell him that he can find out in a discovery. He repeats that he would be happy to pay if there was a discrepancy. Which, please, if that were true, we wouldn't be here now, would we? Then he started ranting. You have nothing on me. It is obvious you have no proof. Isn't it suspicious that cousin got a new car? It's obvious where the money went. I'm not concerned about going to court at all. I was just trying to save you the time and money and blah blah blah. Eventually, I just give up talking to him and saying that the court will handle it and see you then. He made it clear that his ace in the hole was the fact that we had a verbal agreement. Show me our signed agreement. Where is it? Fun fact, verbal agreements are enforceable and cousin was there to witness it. Now he gets a month to respond to the summons. Guilty, no guilty, etc. Then a second date is set for the hearing. But if he doesn't respond, it is default judgment. Last day he shows up and agrees that he owes the money and does not intend to fight it. Awesome. The court enters judgment for the $600 plus all the filing fees. I did get slightly confused when I got the news of default judgment because I thought he just didn't show up, not that he didn't contest it. At this point, he gets another month to appeal. The day after that date is passed, I gleefully message him again. Hey man, it's been a month since the judgment and I haven't heard from you. How did you want to proceed? The judgment was wrong. I'm fighting it in court. I never signed anything. That is my defense and we'll see you in court. Incredulous, you didn't show up. You didn't respond to the letter which the court knows you received. And you didn't appeal within the 30 days. Remember, I thought he didn't even show up. I did show up and told her I was fighting. Not my fault they processed it wrong. I lost a whole day of work and will be suing for that too. Plus whatever else I lose over this. My parole officer and I discussed what you've been told is severely wrong. I just stopped responding. My next step was to file my judgment at the county court. Make sure it gets signed after judgment by the judge. Learn from my mistake. Then file for a writ of execution. Remember again that all these fees just gets added to the total amount he has to pay. Turns out that he moved sometime in all of this. So the sheriff just subpoenaed his address from the post office. Turns out he was living with his new girlfriend. And finally, the conclusion, just last night, my dad said, guess what? You got mail. It's from the sheriff. I'm like, oh, gimme. Now I was expecting something about him fighting the rioter, or they couldn't find him, what my next step was, something like that. But what I didn't expect was 2 escrow checks for the full amount owed me. I squealed in absolute delight. I told my mom, my cousin, my aunt, and we'll gleefully have the checks cashed on Monday. Thank you all for reading.